Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thanks for joining us this morning and coming along to the Scripps Geophysics Graduate Online Information Session. The first thing I want to do is just welcome everyone that's here from the admissions team. I think it's useful for the people that are here just to see our faces and know who we are. We are the people behind the emails that you might be writing. At GP Admissions, you should definitely feel free to email us your questions. We will get back to you and reply in due course. We do have a little bit of a backlog at the moment, but rest assured we are getting the emails, and you should feel free to send those questions to us. Jennifer is our chair of the admissions committee, and myself and Maddie Morsfeld are assisting her. And we've prepared a info session for you today. To give you some sort of insights into what life as a graduate student in geophysics is like at Scripps. The schedule we're going to go through today is our director, Peter Shearer, will give an overview of life at IGPP. I will talk a little bit about the graduate program. Jennifer will talk about the application process to come to graduate school. Ellis will talk a little bit about, to give you a student perspective of what it's like. He's a current graduate student here. And then we'll dive into our research group summaries. And we have 7 areas that we'll have presentations from current faculty and in IGPP that will walk you through some of the research activities that are going on in those groups. And at the end, we'll have time for some questions. I would ask anyone who has a question to put it in the chat. We will try and collect as many of those questions as we can during the session and answer them at the end. If we don't get to your question during this session, we will follow up with all the email addresses that we've got from the questionnaire, and we'll send you all those answers in a sort of bulk email to hopefully cover anything that was asked during this meeting or during the questionnaire, from the questionnaire. So with that, I will switch over to ask Peter to present his overview of IGPP. Thanks, Peter.
Okay, let me share my screen here. And put it in presentation mode. Hopefully you all can see that. So most of the geophysics that is done at Scripps is done at IGPP, which you can see here, which is part of the Scripps Institute of Oceanography, which in turn is part of the University of California, San Diego. So just to start with the location, we have this very spectacular site that's on the cliff on the beach. We're in the city of San Diego, which modestly calls itself America's finest city, but I think it has a claim to that, at least in terms of the climate, which you can see is ideal, which facilitates a lot of outdoor activities that our students are able to enjoy. And the local site, I think, is also equally nice. The grounds of IGPP. As a first-year geophysics student, you would be housed in this office called the Keller. It's a shared office that has these views of the beach that are pretty incredible. But of course, when you're trying to evaluate graduate programs, having a nice location is good, but its quality of faculty is more important. And here we have both a lot of outstanding researchers that, there's a lot of breadth as well as quality. And we have strengths in both observations and theory and modeling. So I wanted to show some examples of the science that we do, and there's really so many that it's hard to choose just a few. So I thought it would be fun, since I have science here in the title, just to show some of the science articles that have been written over the last few years. So here is one of the more recent ones. This was a study of the pair of earthquakes that occurred earlier this year in Turkey. This was led by one of our current postdocs, you see here, but he was able to bring together a number of researchers at IGPP and to take advantage of their broad knowledge to be able to explain some of was everybody able to hear me? It just said that I
Yeah,
was.
you were out for a minute, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, I don't know what happened, but anyway, so to go on, I hope you can all still hear me. This was from a few years ago. This is a very
Peter, we can hear you, but we can't see your slides.
You need to restart the slide
okay. Let me
sharing.
share. Yeah, let me share screen again. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yep.
Oops. Okay. So this was very influential paper from a few years ago, led by Helen Fricker, that used satellite altimetry data to map out some of the water movement in these subglacial lakes that are under Antarctica. And another example of a very well-cited paper is this science article led by Dave Sanwell, where they're using remote sensing satellite data to create this new marine gravity map, and it found many new features, including extinct spreading ridges and undersea seamounts. And I would be remiss, however, if I didn't highlight a paper, a more theoretical paper. This was one led by Steve Constable that took on the challenging problem of the best way to invert EM data and came up with this very practical approach to during the inversions. It's called Occam's inversion. You can see it has over 3,000 citations to date. So I think that's my last slide. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you, Peter. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to switch over now and talk a little bit about the graduate program. So let me pull this up. I hope everyone can see this. Yeah, and this presentation normally would be given by the curriculum coordinator, who is unfortunately not able to attend. Manny Morsfeld is unable to attend because he's teaching at the moment. So he asked me to present this material for him. Essentially, Scripps is a very large department, and it's comprised of 3 academic programs. So climate, ocean, atmosphere program, the ocean biosciences program, and the geoscience of the earth, oceans, and planets, GOP. Now, GOP would be the particular academic program that you would fall in if you were to come here as a graduate student in geophysics. And within each of these academic programs, there are curricular groups. You can see I've just highlighted, or Maddie's highlighted there for us, the one that you would fall in, geophysics. There's another curricular group for geosciences and marine chemistry and geochemistry. So there are 3 common features across all of the curricular groups in the GOP program. There is a 3-person guidance committee. There's a departmental exam that you have to complete at the end of your first year. And you have a qualifying exam, which you would take by the end of the third year. Okay, so these are three things that are in common to all of these curricular groups. And there are 3 degree names, one for each curricular group. As a geophysicist, you would come in and your degree would have earth sciences printed on at the end, printed on your certificate at the end. So the sort of timeline, if you like, or the sort of typical schedule for a graduate school here, we aim to have students graduating in apparently on average 5.74 years. And, you know, in terms of the year-by-year breakdown, essentially what you would be doing in year 1, you would take predominantly classes. At the end of year 1, you would take this departmental exam. And then as the years progress, the sort of classes or the amount of classes you're taking kind of winds down a little bit and your research activities increase. So in year 2, you do maybe a mixture of classes and research. In year 3, you form your committee and you go through your qualifying exam, and sort of around, you know, year 4, you're really doing spending all of your time doing research. I think it's worthwhile to spend a little bit of time discussing the specifics of what your first year would look like. If you were to come to IGPP and study geophysics here, the first year is kind of the classes that you would be taking. There's a group of what we call foundational classes. And there's, you know, space in that timetable for electives as well. So everyone takes the foundational classes, and the electives are largely chosen in consultation with your advisors, your mentors, and the guidance committee. And I'll talk a little bit about what this guidance committee is in a few slides. And the idea being that you essentially spend the first year finding your feet, learning these foundational topics that we've selected, finding a research topic, deciding on your advisor, so that in the end of your first 3 quarters here in spring, so that first summer break, you're really able to start doing research, and you're well set up to take the departmental exam by the end of spring. In terms of the classes, this is a schedule or a course offering, I should say, for the geophysics program. The sort of classes that are listed up here in the top in dark blue background, these are the foundational classes. So there's a geophysical research skills class, 2 data analysis classes, a class called Physics of Earth Materials, a geodynamics class, and a practical PDEs or partial differential equations class. These are classes that are sort of going to be distributed throughout 3 quarters. So you can see here, fall, winter, and spring. And the idea being that, you know, you take a lot of classes in fall and a little less in winter and a little less in spring, so that you're able to, you know, start doing that, moving that transition towards having more time for research. Or other classes, electives. We do encourage everyone to take these electives. I'm not going to read out all of the electives that are on offer. Some of them are offered every 2nd year, some are offered every year. You know, you would go with your mentors, look at this list, and think about which ones are appropriate for you, given the sort of research areas and research activities and interests you have, and choose them accordingly, and also considering when they're offered. So there's a large offering, and then these are all offered within geophysics, but there are, of course, other classes outside of the geophysics curricular group that you're also able to take, maybe in the geoscience curricular group or in another curricular group. And again, this would be something that you can decide and choose, select with your mentor and your committee. So one thing that is a little bit interesting about the program that we've set up for the first year students is this sort of sequence that we call geophysical research skills. And these are 3 sort of classes designed to teach you some fundamentals of being a scientist. You know, we teach you how to prepare figures, make posters, prepare and deliver different types of oral presentations. We have a class just dedicated to learn how to write, specifically scientific writing. We teach you how to write papers, proposals, fellowships, this type of thing. And then there's a class dedicated just learning how to read and synthesize scientific literature. These are popular courses. These are new courses that we started a couple of years ago, are generally very well received, and they really do help prepare students for moving into PhD life, right? Going to conferences, writing papers, giving seminars. That's what this training is really designed to enable them to be able to do. And the instructors for this 3-course sequence is the the 3 people that fill the departmental exam committee. And those people are listed here. So the exam committee is chaired by Ross Parnell-Turner and also is comprised of Elise Gabriel and Steve Constable. They are responsible for many things. The main task is to prepare the exam and to run the exam, the departmental exam. But more importantly, they're actually there as your support team. So when you have an issue transitioning into grad school, or you have issues or concerns, questions about courses to take, these 3 people are external to your mentors usually, and they're there to help and advise you with those specific issues you might have or questions you might have about your first year as a graduate student in geophysics. So they serve the role of taking care of the exam, but also in terms of supporting you throughout your first year. So you have these 3 people you can always go to. This departmental committee will meet with you individually and as a group throughout the year. And in addition to those 3 people in the departmental exam committee, you'll also have the curriculum group coordinator, Maddie Morsfeld, who's again part of what we call your guidance committee, which is a group of 4 people to help guide you and navigate you through your sort of first year in graduate school. Beyond the first year, the support team still exists. It's a little broader now and maybe encompasses the director, Peter Shearer, buildings and facilities manager, Megan Smith, the people in NetOps. These are the people that take care of all our IT and computing related issues. Of course, have your advisors, your instructors for the foundational class, fellow GP students and postdocs that are here, and of course, the other cohort members in your graduate, in the year that you enroll in graduate school. And lastly, I'd like to just sort of highlight sort of some of our philosophies here in IGPP. We think we provide a very structured curriculum that provides students with a good, strong foundational knowledge of geophysics. We do actually value having educational diversity in the undergraduates coming in. So we welcome people from not just geophysics undergraduate programs, but geology, mathematics, physics, engineering, computer science, and more. So if in doubt, just contact the admissions committee and ask specific questions about your educational background if you think it's appropriate or not. Scripps has a very broad range of specialized and interdisciplinary courses outside of the GP curricular group, and we encourage you to explore those. We really want you to find exciting research projects and have fun doing them. That is very important to us, and we encourage people to, pursue that. We also have the opportunity at Scripps for students to take advantage of field and seagoing projects. We also have great computational resources here at IGPP and Scripps. We encourage you to explore those as graduate students. And you're given the size and diversity of faculty members within Scripps, there really is something for everybody. And we do encourage people, students, to go and explore those collaborations. And, just to reiterate, again, the second point, we do really value interdisciplinary research activities in and within PhD projects. So with that, I'm going to end the presentation and hand over to Jennifer, who is going to talk more about the admissions process.
Okay. See if I can get to screen slideshow. Okay, well, welcome to our info session. I literally took this picture Monday from our building, so just have to participate in the San Diego culture here. So I'm going to talk about the admissions process. So one thing is that it's not obvious to everyone how the admission process works, especially if you're not in an R1 university or you're coming from a background where you don't have a lot of easy access to information. And we understand that. And so we have several programs at Scripps that can help demystify the application and admissions process. It's open to students of all backgrounds, but we are especially cognizant of the needs of people with traditionally underrepresented backgrounds in science. And so there's a link here that's in the presentation. I put the link in the chat window, and just put me back a link and a note in the chat window if you're having any difficulty accessing it, because I do have several links in the presentation here. All right, so the key thing is to find the research topic and faculty that are interested in working in the topic that you're interested in. And that can be a little bit daunting. So I have a link here to all the faculty at Scripps, where on one page you can kind of Google around and find people working in the general area that you're interested in. And I encourage you to read up on their research on the different individual websites, etc. But also in Scholar Google, you can not expected to understand the papers, but you can see by the title, if maybe in the abstract, maybe if it's something that's an area that you're interested in. And so it is challenging. Geophysics is a challenging topic, and it does take some effort to understand and put in the time to master different topics. And I just put a link here to one of the fun core classes for the geophysics department that kind of gives you an idea of the type of things you'll be learning in class. So it's not required that you contact potential advisors by email, but it definitely gives you a better frame to compose your research statement and just to think a little bit more deeply about what really interests you. So that is something that professors are expecting, that they'll get emails from people that are interested in working with them. So specifically in IGPP, there are a list of potential advisors and projects for fall 2024 admission. Doesn't mean that it's limited to those topics, but those are topics that definitely people are interested in recruiting a student. And of course, you already have the link to the admissions site. So when you're going through the application process, there is MS, master's versus PhD. I have to say that the Scripps PhD program, it's research-based. We really are focused on the research in the doctoral program. You are guaranteed 5 years of funding if you're admitted. And the funding can be from fellowships, external fellowships. It could be a fellowship that you've applied for and earned on your own. It could be a research assistantship that's linked to faculty grant, could be a teaching assistantship, which usually all the students do at some point in their career here, academic career at Scripps, to gain teaching experience. So an MS is not required to apply for the PhD program, and we're very agnostic to that. Well, it gives a better idea of what the research experience of the student is, but there's really no adverse interpretation of the lack of a MS degree. So PhD students often obtain their MS along the way in the PhD program. And after the first year of courses, they can look into that. So the MS program is designed as a terminal degree. MS students are self-funded, so we do not make a point of providing funding, although MS students can apply for TA-ships, but you have to go into that thinking that it is the responsibility of the student to fund their education, and they can earn that degree through a one-year program with courses and a comprehensive exam, or do a research thesis. The admission requirements are the same for the MS and the PhD. Okay, so Dave gave a good overview of the different programs at Scripps, and so I'm going to get to the part in the application. You need to select which program. So I want to emphasize that Scripps is very interdisciplinary. We do everything that has anything to do with the Earth and other planets and life on that Earth. So it may be that you're interested in multidisciplinary topics, and so you can choose more than one program. Just for example, you could choose the climate ocean and also choose geosciences. And many areas of research cross these boundaries. So there's you should choose all the programs that you're interested in, so that faculty will be advised of your application present in the system. So the other thing that you choose on the application is the faculty, is 3 faculty in the program that you're interested in. And so these people are triggered to look at your file in particular, but it does give an idea of, we know what Emily Chin does. And so if you write Emily Chin something that interests, as a faculty member that interests you, we can actually gain a little bit of information from that about, what kind of things you're interested in. All right, so the criteria for the admission, we have 6 criteria, and I'll just say a few words about each. Academic preparation, we look at grades and transcripts. It's more important that you're taking challenging, relevant courses than the exact grade that you have in the course. The research statement, you want to describe any past research experience. We realize that it's experience given opportunity. So some people may be describing a significant class project that illustrates their scholarly potential that they were very interested in. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is considered in the application process. We're looking to see the personal experiences or efforts to promote equity of access to higher education for marginalized groups, and the efforts to create an environment where all can succeed. We are interested in alignment with the research program, just because if we don't have sufficient expertise, then we can't be good mentors in that topic. So possibility of not getting admitted because interested in something that is completely non-existent in our department. So you want to list those potential advisors and that you're interested in, and make those links with the common research interests. We do look for evidence or potential for growth, description of strengths and weaknesses, and also think a little bit about your long-term goals. Why are you getting a PhD? So a couple additional tips. We do consider people that don't have a major in geophysics or earth science, because they're foundational mathematics and physics and computational skills as well, that are an advantage for solving some of the challenging geophysics problems. The diversity statement that is required in the application, we're looking to see leadership roles in community building, acts of social justice, evidence of initiative, leadership, and also the impact of efforts to increase diversity and inclusion, and just, as I said, increase access to higher education for the larger community. There is a COVID statement on the application. So everything was affected by COVID, and that may mean that some opportunities were not available to you. And this is your chance to explain any adversity you encountered and your efforts to compensate. And so that's a space where you can describe any personal experiences that affect your application. Given those COVID challenges, we know that there have been some missing pieces in your education, and so we do provide some things like the MATLAB bootcamp to come up to speed on programming, and you should look for other ways to supplement that if you feel that you've been adversely affected. Reference letters. Ask for letters from people that can speak to an individual project where you could take the initiative. Could be a class project, for example, and don't hesitate to remind them. People remind me all the time about letters that are due. and it's not a problem, not a problem. On your CV, not just a list of jobs, but kind of the depth of your responsibility within that context. And it gives you a chance to describe your skills, computational skills, and leadership and teamwork. And it's good to show evidence of progression and a desire to learn, that new things are being tried there. Okay, so some of the questions that came in, what do you look for in a prospective student? I covered that in one slide. Do you need to contact faculty prior to applying? Otherwise, does no response from a professor mean zero chance of getting selected? No, you don't have to, you're not required to contact any faculty at all. You can submit an application just based on your own understanding of what the opportunities are and the research areas. So, and it may also be that a professor is busy. It may also be that particular professor is not taking students, but sometimes you don't know what opportunities exist. So you can put all of your experience out there, and it may be that someone else looks at the file and can pick up on key research interests. So definitely don't think that your application is excluded if you don't have a personal experience with a professor. Admission is not offered in the winter. I covered the 3 types of funding. We do fund the PhD students. What if I majored in math, physics, or engineering? And I cover that as well. Those are foundational courses for us here in geophysics, and we appreciate that experience. We are open to people with a diverse variety of backgrounds, because as I tried to emphasize in my talk, that there really is a lot of overlap between geophysics and other parts of the Earth system, whether it's oceanography, polar science, atmospheric science, what have you. Thank you, and let me know if you have any additional questions.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was great. We are now going to switch to hear from Alice as one of our student representatives in geophysics, to give a sense of what it's like to be a student at IGPP. Slides look good, Alice.
Thanks. Yeah, here's my photo from the Monk balcony, like everyone else. Yeah, I'm a 4th year PhD student at Scripps /Geophysics. So I'll give you a little overview of sort of day-to-day life and activities for the students in our program. So there's about 300 or so total grad students at Scripps. At IGPP, about 45, unless I forgot some people. Mostly PhD students, but not all. There's sort of a good mix between US and international students. And so before this, I polled everyone with just some basic questions so you guys could get a sense of what actually people's background is. And so indeed, like a few people have already mentioned, many people come from a earth science or geophysics background, but not everyone. Lots of physics and math and some engineering. And many people came straight from undergrad, but certainly not everybody. There's some people with master's degrees or were working beforehand. And just, very quickly, I asked people to give a 5-word overview of what their research is. So maybe some of the faculty in the audience can identify their students' topics, but it was definitely a wide variety of active research interests, just like Peter and Dave had already mentioned. So there's lots of stuff going on day to day around Scripps and IGPP, where you can get to know your peers and colleagues as well as other people around. This was my view from the Keller, which is the 1st year office. So you can't really get much better than that. So you'll be in there for your 1st year along with your cohort mates. And during the 1st year, there's also a peer mentor program where you get paired with a senior student, likely in geophysics, who can kind of help show you the ropes and check in on you and make sure everything's going well. There's a number of events around IGPP on a weekly basis where you can chat with everyone else in the department and listen to seminars from visiting researchers. And there's a number of events organized by geophysics students and Scripps students in general that happen on a regular basis, like the GP student seminar about every other week, social events, pizza nights, beach days, etc. Every Friday, there's a beachside happy hour at the student lounge, which is showed in the bottom photo here. And then historically, there's also been a camping trip, although it has not happened since COVID started, but maybe this year's the year. Here's a whole bunch of other stuff that's going on. I won't go into detail about everything, but you can just kind of note that no matter what your extracurricular interests are, there's pretty much something there for everybody. And I'm glad that Jennifer already highlighted the SIO Ask program because I wanted to make sure everyone's aware of that. So I asked people what their favorite and least favorite things about San Diego were, and I think everything's pretty much as expected. The beach, the weather, lots of stuff to do, and nature, a super awesome natural environment, and food, of course. Some of the less fun things are that it is an expensive place to live. It was recently ranked the most expensive city to live in by some report, I forget where. And there's, like most of Southern California, there's a lot of driving and traffic involved with getting around. That being said, there's a lot to offer still, no matter what you're interested in. So in terms of where people live, most people live pretty close to campus, sort of within this red box. So SIO is a little bit west of the main UCSD campus, and a majority of students live in that area, either in the graduate student housing or just in apartments and houses. There are some other areas where people live are highlighted here too. People can get to campus for their variety of ways. If you live much further away, like outside the red box, most people would be driving, although there is the new blue trolley line, which is shown on this map, which does sort of connect the UCSD area a little bit better to like downtown via public transit. And so that does open up some options for housing. And so there's a lot to do around San Diego. Up in the upper left-hand corner is what everyone said their favorite activities and pastimes were. And so a lot of like outdoor stuff, climbing, surfing, snorkeling, but all sorts of other activities too, no matter what your preferences are. There's probably some people here that are into the same stuff. And there's really good food too, like I already mentioned. I think there was only two overlapping favorite restaurants that the students listed. And so I think that's a testament to the culinary scene in San Diego. So that's pretty much everything, just really short, but I'm super happy to answer any more questions. Like if you want to email me, I'm happy to chat offline or try to connect you with other students in the program. So just shoot me a message.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ellis. That was great. Okay, we're going to change gears a little bit and switch over to talk about the research groups that are, hear from some of the research groups that are currently running in IGPP. And the first of those presentations will be given by Kathy, talking about Deep Earth. Thanks, Kathy. These slides look good. See them.
Hope you can see this. Try and move that out of the way. Okay, so I want to show you this cast of characters who are a selection of people, of actually a faculty who are working on deep earth problems. And you'll see a bunch more of these folks in some of the other presentations because they're not entirely confined to deep earth. Some of them work on shallow things and some of them work all over the place. So I've divided this into sort of three topics: seismology with Gabby Laskett and Peter Shearer, computational dynamics, the Daves here. And I should mention that Dave Steadman is also interested not just in the interior of the Earth, but other planets as well. And over here, there's a group of folks who work on electromagnetism, geomagnetism, geophysical inversion. You already heard a little bit about the Occam inversion from Peter Shearer. And what I want to do is to just emphasize that there are theoretical, observational, and experimental approaches that are all used for studying the deep Earth. Okay, and you might wonder what something has. So here are a bunch of geophysical facilities that. Whoops, what happened there? Oh, okay, my window just vanished, but it's come back, fortunately. There's a bunch of geophysical facilities that we have at Scripps in geophysics explicitly. The ocean bottom seismograph lab, the electromagnetic lab. They're a part of the global seismic network. So what do we mean by deep, I guess? That depends on who you ask. And here's a use of structural seismology to study the structure within the Earth. Here's Peter Shearer, who is famous for many things, writing a textbook for studying upper mantle discontinuities using seismic data. And here you can see this is talking about upper mantle seismic discontinuities. So this is going down to the bottom of the upper mantle. It's around 600 kilometers. But over here, he's using similar techniques, or I should say not dissimilar techniques, to look at the structure just below the lithosphere. So just, you know, of the order of sort of 0 to 300 kilometers. So for some people, 100 kilometers is really deep. For other people, 660 kilometers is deep. And other people are interested in the lower mantle. So here's a sampling of Gabby Laske's work. She does marine seismology and has been looking at the structure of the plume that comes from the lower mantle beneath Hawaii to the surface using ocean bottom seismometers. And this has been a project that's been going on now for more than a decade, perhaps even 2. She also uses normal mode seismology, looking at seismic records of the Earth as a whole to study the deep interior. And what you see here is the sort of idea of what seismic velocity looks like at the bottom of the mantle. Where it's blue, things are fast. Where it's red, things are slow. And this is telling us about the structure of the mantle near the core mantle boundary down in here that you see in this cutout. Okay, so then there are also electromagnetic studies, and Steve Constable is very much engaged in doing marine electromagnetic work, where he's looking here in the relatively shallow area of subduction, looking at the electrical resistivity below Nicaragua, and looking at the structure of conductivity, resistivity or conductivity, the reciprocal things in beneath Nicaragua. He's also interested in deeper things, the electrical conductivity of the mantle. Here you see a nice sample of a xenolith with olivine and an olivine crystal, which is one of the major constituents of the mantle. And down here, you see this combination of what you can get out in looking at the conductivity, the one-dimensional conductivity structure as a function of depth in the mantle, and various strategies for trying to understand what it looks like and what the uncertainty of it is, which leads to the idea of uncertainty quantification, which is a big deal for Matti Morsfeld, and the development of inverse algorithms for trying to invert geophysical data in general to understand what we're looking at via remote sensing. So over here is a relatively recent figure from a relatively recent publication where they're combining regularized inversion, like the Occam idea, with Bayesian sampling and the randomized then optimized strategy to look at uncertainty of resistivity as a function of depth and see how that can be quantified. Okay, so now I come to what the stuff that I'm very interested in, geomagnetic variations on all timescales, and the timescale is enormous, as you see in this grand spectrum over here of geomagnetic field variations, where we're looking at the energy in the variations as a function of frequency. And you see it goes from all the way from 10 to the minus 15 to 10 to the 5th hertz. And that means hundreds of millions of years down to very small numbers of seconds. The idea, one of the things that is a big interest is linking paleomagnetic field modeling, the field from Earth's core, to what can be learned from numerical simulations. And in order to do that, we engage in a bridging process using stochastic modeling of the magnetic field, where we try and use very much reduced order models to try and figure out what the paleomagnetic data are telling us and what numerical simulations are telling us. And some of the things involved here are really trying to figure out, can we find precursors for reversals of the geomagnetic field and other such things. Okay, I would like to highlight, as has been mentioned already, that we're a very interdisciplinary institution, and there are links to geosciences in the deep earth structure. James Day is a geochemist who's interested in planet formation, petrogenesis of igneous rocks. Emily Chin is interested in the origin and evolution of continental crust. Jeff Gee is interested in paleogeomagnetism from the experimental perspective. And these are links to that are important in actually understanding the broader perspective of what we're looking at. Okay, that brings me to my last slide, which is why you should come here to do geophysics graduate work. And this pretty much says all the things that you've already heard. So I'll leave it there and then pass it on to the next folks who will emphasize perhaps different aspects of what some of these people do.
Thanks, Kathy. David, would you like to present geodesy?
Yep.
Wonderful, thank you.
See my slide. Hello, everyone. I'm Dave Sandwell. I'm one of the more senior professors here at Scripps, and I'm here to talk about the geodesy program. It's not a separate program, it's part of our geophysics program, but something new has happened this year. We got funding from the National Geodetic Survey to fund 5 fellowships in the area of geodesy. And the reason for this is that a number of us are getting older and near retirement, me and Yehuda and Mark Zumberg and geodesists all over the US. And these agencies decided they needed to get going and get young people involved. And so that's the crux of this proposal, to try to get people that are interested in geodesy. They can come from all types of backgrounds. They don't have to be geodesists now. It's sort of a specialized area of geophysics, and I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing. But that's it. And I think we had a question early on about, how do we apply for this particular program? Well, you don't. You're going to apply for the geophysics program, but express some interest in geodesy, with maybe working with one of the faculty that are doing things in geodesy. Oops. So let me talk a little bit about the curriculum. You heard about the geophysics curriculum and the core courses and so on. And so anyone in this that has one of these geodesy fellowships will be taking exactly the same courses as the other members of their cohort. But we'd like to get people also involved in geodesy. And so we're sort of adding a few courses. This one on reference frames and global gravity that will be taught by Adrian and Yehuda is a newer course, but it's really a fundamental thing that we would like anyone in this fellowship to take. There's a list of other courses that we've used. We used this in our proposal. We said we're going to teach these classes, and of course GNSS geodesy is an important class. Jennifer Haas teaches that. Helen Fricker and I have been doing satellite remote sensing for many years, and that's a mature class. Yuri and Jennifer and me do a space geodesy seminar class, which involves some field work. That's one of my favorite classes, and I'll show you a slide from that. We've been teaching radar interferometry through UNAVCO for many years, but now we're going to make it more official. Jamin Greenbaum wants to teach a geodetic field work class using our facility at Pinyon Flat, which should be really exciting, using drones and other things. And Pinyon Flat is actually a center, we haven't talked about that much, a center for geodetic research and seismic research here at IGPP. It's about 2 hours away. It's a large plot of land used for doing all kinds of interesting experiments. Mark Zumberg and Glenn Sasagawa have funding from the National Science Foundation to deploy seafloor geodesy instrumentation. We're the center here. And so we've had a class in seafloor geodesy, but that's also a good area of research. And then, of course, we want people to take the normal core courses, geophysical data analysis, for example, and also broaden their perspectives, take things like physical oceanography. While you're here at Scripps, there's some really top oceanographers in the world, and you should take advantage of that. So my time's up and almost over. I just have some pretty pictures here. This is some pictures from our geodesy field work. Yuri and I and Jennifer and others go maybe twice every year out to the Imperial Valley when it's in the wintertime, when it's cooler. We work with our colleagues down in Mexico at CICESE to do campaign GPS. I really enjoy this. It gets us away from our desk. Here's another field campaign that was done after the Ridgecrest earthquake. We went out and deployed instruments to look at the post-seismic response from this large earthquake. And this is Jennifer and a couple postdocs having fun with left lateral and right lateral faults. One of the main things in this geodesy program will be developing a reference frame model that moves with plates, mainly along California plate boundary, but also all over the world, something sort of new. And this is very practical, something that Yehuda and I and Yuri are working on. Another thing, data science. Yehuda has a group doing data science and visualization, machine learning things. And I'm gonna, here's the seafloor geodesy component led by Mark Zumberg and Glenn Sasagawa. And again, they run the facility for the National Science Foundation, and most of the deployment occurs offshore Cascadia and also Alaska. Oh, and then finally, I think this is my last slide. Adrian has a hydrogeodesy program to look at water issues in the Western US and California. And there's another group, Western Water something here, that looks at water issues. And Jennifer does a lot of work using balloons and GNSS to look for things like atmospheric rivers and how they impact California. So there's a lot going on in the geodesy here. And I'll stop there.
Great. Thank you, David. Helen, would you like to present the polar science research area?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Do you see it?
It's perfect. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so thank you, everyone. I'm going to take you to the polar regions and show you what we do in IGPP and then across Scripps, understanding how the ice sheets are interacting with the ocean and how they're losing mass and adding to sea level rise. So this is a very interdisciplinary research topic going across the Earth section into the ocean and atmosphere section at Scripps as well. There's several of us involved. This slide's actually a bit outdated, I'm sorry, but there's several faculty involved here. Myself, Jamin Greenbaum has been mentioned already. Wenyan Fan, who I believe is on the line here, he does work in Greenland, and there's many other people across Scripps involved in this kind of work. So I'm just going to take you through some of the highlights. There is a website, polar.ucsd.edu, that you can have a look at to see more of the Polar Center activities. This is a slide that David slipped in, which I will present in the context of remote sensing and observing the Earth. It's the same techniques that we're using for observing the ice sheets in many of the applications that I work on, as has been used to monitor the oceans. And this is a map of marine gravity from David's group. It's a different set of satellites, though. They're in a different orbit, but the principle is the same. It's altimetry, which is measuring the height of the Earth, basically. It's a geodetic technique, and we do a lot of that at Scripps, geodetic altimetry for various applications. So this is one of them. And then the other one is monitoring the ice sheets. So here is essentially the crux of the issue here is that we are very uncertain about, this isn't just us and me and my group, it's the whole community are very uncertain about how much ice is going to come off Antarctica over the next few decades to centuries. And it's very important as we learn to adapt to different scenarios of future climate warming. And there are some possibilities that we might be in a very high, potentially high impact storyline, they call it in the IPCC. These plots are from the IPCC here, where ice sheet processes might kick in that actually lead to very large sea level rise. And so my group is very much involved at the sort of forefront of looking at this, like how the ice shelves of Antarctica and the tidewater glaciers in Greenland are holding back the ice on the grounded, sitting on the bedrock, the grounded ice, which will then add to sea level. So we're very interested in this sort of ice shelf interaction with the ocean. It's a very sort of ideal topic for Scripps, actually, because of the interaction of the solid earth and the ocean and the atmosphere. It all sort of comes together at the ice shelves, and turns out they're the most important part for how the ice sheet is going to respond in the future. So understanding these processes is very important. One of the big the main instruments that I'm involved in is called ISAT-2. It's a laser altimeter. It's a NASA laser altimeter in orbit, and my group is doing a lot of work with that. So this is some earlier work that was done here at Scripps about 10 years or so ago. And this is showing us that where we're losing the ice around the ice shelves is also where we have warmer water around Antarctica. And so we know from this work and other work that the ice shelves are losing mass to the ocean because of the ocean carrying that heat flux underneath and melting them. And that in turn is meaning that they are less able to hold back that grounded ice. And that's causing sea level rise. So it's a big linked system, and we're studying the whole thing together. So this is a time series of altimetry that showed us this. So red, in all my plots, red is warm and blue is cold. So it's kind of intuitive. And ice does not like red. Ice does not like to melt. And we are also suffering the consequences of that. And it makes it to the shores all around the world, the coastal all the coastal areas need to know about sea level rise and how much we're going to get and how quickly, so that we can learn to adapt to those scenarios. This is some work that was done by a former student, Fernando Paulo. It's kind of pivotal work, actually, because it was about 18 years of data from a radar altimeter, which was able to track the mass loss all around the ice shelves and tell us where they're thinning. A little bit of an update to the one I showed you before. And because it's a time series, you can actually start to understand the physics of what's going on, the processes, the atmosphere, the ocean, how it's interacting. Turns out there's an El Nino signal on top as well, so it's super complicated. And our signals are very, very dominated by many, many time scales. And so they're all sort of raveled together. So you need a long time series to really be able to understand all of that and disentangle it. So ISAT-2 has come along and definitely helped us to put the picture together. We're now seeing on this map, we were very involved in this work in my group. This is ISAT-2 minus ISAT, which was the original laser altimeter from NASA. And we're seeing mass loss. Again, the red is where we're losing mass and the blue is where we're gaining mass. And so we're keeping our eye on the places where the red is on this plot. So you might have heard of Thwaites Glacier, that's down here. And there's also some hotspots over here in East Antarctica where myself and Jamin Greenbaum have traditionally worked because of our links with the Australian program, but also because it's very important for future mass loss, because that's where most of the ice is stored. So ISAT-2 is helping us understand these links between the grounded ice and the ice shelves, and also allowing us to look at some processes that are causing the mass to be added and taken away again, which is what we're interested in. It's the input-output. This is some work that Sushil Adusumilli did during his PhD. He's still a postdoc here at Scripps, graduated a couple of years ago. He used ISAT to look at how much snow is being deposited on the ice sheet, and turned out that a lot of this was actually in the form of atmospheric rivers, which you may have heard about, affecting the West Coast here in the US. Turns out they also bring mass to Antarctica, and ISAT can tell us how much. The other thing Sushil did, which was very important and kind of groundbreaking, was use a time series to back out basal melt rates, like how fast is that ice melting underneath, and then hand a data set to modelers so they can get freshwater fluxes all around the ice sheet for 25 years, which is very important for being able to model the ice sheet and understand what's going to happen in the future. And all of this is from space, like 700-800 kilometers above the Earth's surface, a satellite orbiting. So how can we possibly know whether it really is giving us the right answer? Well, we can go and do some ground validation. And this is an Alamo float deployment in the Ross Sea. So this is a float that will go in and take measurements and get the temperature and salinity of the water off the front of the ice shelf. And we can match that up with the satellite measurements. So this is work that we do, and it's all ongoing work. And like I said, various groups at Scripps are doing some work like this. And so this is sort of the big picture, like where everybody goes all around in the polar center. I mean, there's work in Greenland, work in Antarctica, there's biology as well. It's a big sort of polar community that's all sort of connected by this virtual center. So this is my former student, Matt Siegfried. He's now a faculty at Colorado School of Mines. And this is my current student, Philip Arndt, landing in Antarctica a couple of years ago. This is Jamin and his team in East Antarctica, and then various other groups here as well. So the thing about geophysics and Antarctica is, and it turns out that the training that the students get at IGPP is actually really foundational and has a potential to really shake up what we know about Antarctic glaciology. And every time a student from this program has gone down to Antarctica with an instrument that they thought of because of the training they got here at Scripps, they've come up with something new. And so we have Jeremy Bassis, who's now a professor at Michigan. He was able to take seismometers and learn about ice shelf rifting, which was really foundational at the time, 10, 15 years ago. Sushil in the middle, the melting, I already told you about his work. He went down to Antarctica and validated some of that with AP-Res. And then on the right, we have Chloe Gustafsson, who was took EM, which we heard about in one of the previous presentations from Kathy, was able to detect groundwater underneath the ice stream, which was really a big story that came out in Science. So I think there's a real potential for a lot of discoveries through this program, and then taking that to Antarctica and Greenland. And I think that was my last slide. Yeah. So thank you. If you have any questions, please email me. I'll put my my email in the chat. Thanks.
Thank you, Helen. Ross, would you care to present the marine geophysics research area?
Sure. If Helen could stop sharing, then I can go ahead.
Great. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thanks, Helen.
That's okay. So hi, I'm Ross Parnell-Turner. I'm one of the faculty here in IGPP. Hopefully you can see this slide that has a bunch of smiling faces looking back at you. So in the short time I have, I just want to give you this main headline message that the seagoing group of scientists we have here in IGPP are some of the most active in any geophysics program anywhere in the world. What you're seeing on the screen right now is the group of us who go to sea on a regular basis. We often work together, so we often collaborate within IGPP. So our students go to sea with each other, but then we also collaborate internationally with partners from other countries and also partners from other institutions in the US. And it's not really surprising. We're at the end of the day, we're here at Scripps Institution of Oceanography, so there's a heavy seagoing connection with many of the folks here. These ships you can see on this slide are 4 of the vessels that are operated here by Scripps Institution of Oceanography. The 2 on the left, Ravel and Sally Ride, are what are called global class vessels, which means they can pretty much go anywhere in the world, and they can go out for long periods of time, for like 30 days or so. And often scientists from Scripps, from IGPP, use these kinds of vessels as a platform to do all kinds of seagoing geophysical experiments. The two vessels you see on the right are a little bit smaller. There's the Sproul, which is in the process of being replaced potentially by a hydrogen-fueled vessel. And this one down here called the Beister, which is brand new. These are more local vessels that we use for things like coastal studies. Scientists and students from IGPB go out on these ships, we collect data, we do experiments, and we come back to the labs and we analyze data, experiments, and samples. So going to sea is not a requirement to be in the program here at Scripps. So for those of you who think that going out on a ship that's going to bob around in the ocean for several days at a time is not for you, that's totally okay. We don't expect you to. But if you are interested in going, then I would say that there are typically multiple opportunities in every year where students can sail on expeditions. And often if one of us in IGPP has an expedition that's sailing, we'll often put out a call for any students who are interested in sailing with us, and we'll try and find a way for you to come to sea with us. And there are ways that we can make sure that there's funding for you to get to travel to the port where the ship might be leaving from. So for example, some of these expeditions leave from far-flung places like Tahiti or from Barbados in the Caribbean. And so we cover your costs to get to those ports of departure. And students may find themselves going on expeditions that may or may not relate to their own research interests. It just depends on what's happening any given year. So I'm going to give you a flavor for some of the science that goes on at sea. In the time we have, I'm not going to go over everything. I'm just going to take some examples here. So this is an image from a paper that was recently published by Steve Constable's group using their marine electromagnetic equipment to map offshore aquifers right here in the San Diego area. So this 3D perspective fence plot shows these profiles where we've collected resistivity data. So the colors here show resistivity going from low to high. So Imperial Beach, which is a southern kind of part of San Diego itself, and San Diego Bay are over here on the right. And you can see using these instruments that we tow just below the seafloor and just below the seabed and just above the seafloor, we can image in great detail things like offshore freshwater aquifers here in San Diego. Another example of things we do at sea are marine seismic experiments. So this is an example of an experiment done using data that was collected on land by a group led by Wenyuan Fan, and using an array of seismometers that are here in the US, shown in these dots here. They're able to show that we can detect and track landslide events that take place in places like the Gulf of Mexico. So in this case, this is a marine seismic experiment, you could say, but we're actually using data that were recorded on land. I can't help but mention my own research. So my group works primarily on mid-ocean ridges where the tectonic plates are spreading apart. This 3D map you see here was collected over a series of years by an autonomous underwater robot at 1 meter resolution. And the center here is a volcanic system which erupts about every 15 to 20 years. And over the last 5 years or so, we've been using submersibles like this one here. This is the human-operated submersible Alvin, which you can see here on the left, which we use to collect samples and also monitor things like the temperature of the vents, the hydrothermal vents that sit on this volcanic system. So this photograph in the center here shows one of our geochemical sampling tools being carefully inserted into a black smoker chimney here so that we can collect temperature and geochemical data. And then lastly, this is my final slide. I wanted to highlight the really active seafloor geodesy group that's here at Scripps. I think David mentioned that we actually have a facility for seafloor geodetic instrumentation, which is unique in the US. And this is a group led by people like Mark Zumberg. And we're particularly interested in monitoring the processes of deformation going on the seafloor in places like the Cascadia subduction zone, where a large number of people would be potentially affected by a large earthquake or tsunami event that might happen in the future. And so we've been developing this set of seafloor transponders and seafloor instruments that we can use to measure deformation on the seafloor for the first time. I'm happy to take any questions by email. Just drop me a message and hopefully we'll hear from you all soon. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ross. Wen-Yuan, would you like to present seismology?
Yes.
Great, thanks, Wen-Yuan.
Can you all see the slides?
Looks perfect.
Great. I'm Wen-Yuan Fan. I'm one of the seismologists here. I will try to be humble and say that we have one of the best seismology programs worldwide. And I hope you have heard about us if you're interested in seismology. The reason we're strong is because we have a group of talented scientists. Here is an incomplete list of seismologists or people who work on seismology-related topics who might be taking students this year. And in addition to this group of colleagues, we have more of colleagues who work on seismology-related topics and or collaborate with seismologists. So why do we have a strong team or a strong program? The reason is we really work on the frontiers of seismology related topics, and there are many different ways to categorize what are frontiers. And here are 3 examples, including large data sets, high performance computing, and observations at remote regions. So I will give you a flavor of research we do here. Here is an example showing one of Peter's recent papers published this year using thousands of nodal stations in Southern California to detect very small earthquakes. And Rob Miller combined distributed acoustic sensing with nodal stations, trying to understand faulting structures as well as seismicity in the Imperial Valley. And here is Yuri Fako's group trying to use earthquakes in Southern California, hundreds of thousands of them, to identify high-resolution fault architectures and to understand regional tectonics as well as the strengths of the crust. And Liz Gabriel is pioneered in using techniques of high-performance computing and a variety of ways to understand rupture propagation. This is a paper from her group published in Nature this year about the Ridgecrest earthquakes in 2019. And also here is Ross using not just the typical seismic instruments, but also hydrophones to understand offshore seismicity along the Atlantic ridges. And last, I couldn't resist also to show my own research about landslides. Here is a combination of using onshore seismic data as well as space geodetic measurements to understand the dynamics and failure processes of landslides in Alaska. So if you're interested in any of these topics and beyond, please feel free to contact us or send me an email. Thank you.
Thank you, Wen-Yuan. Bashan, would you like to present the Soft Earth Geophysics group?
Yes.
Excellent.
So I'll talk about soft earth geophysics, which is a relatively new emerging subfield of geoscience. And what we realize is that the flow of granular materials underpins many of the critical processes within the Earth's surface, from ice shelf collapse, crystal-rich magma, slope stability, gouge for earthquakes, liquefaction, pyroclastic density currents. And it turns out that forecasting when a granular material on Earth will move from something that looks like a solid and is not moving to like a liquid-like state in these flow is actually really difficult and one of the big unsolved problems in all of physics. One of the things that have been really instrumental in moving the field forward is to recognize that Earth granular materials are a part of a broad class of soft matter. And that there's a bunch of people who are working on soft matter from chemistry, physics, material science, engineering, biology, machine learning. And so we could really look at this stuff in an interdisciplinary way. One of the emerging theories from 20 years ago is that maybe if you look at statistical mechanical tools and try to connect it with geophysics, we might actually start being able to forecast landslides and when some of these hazards will occur. One theory called frictional jamming has been something that the field has been working on for the last 10, 20 years. And it is a potential unifier of all soft matter theory. And this is what we work on in the software geophysics sort of group here at IGPP, where we're trying to understand how does something move from something that's jammed and solid to something that's liquid, and the behavior is very near this transition line. And we do this by taking an approach wherein we have a theory. The theory makes some phenomenological predictions, and then we do lab experiments that test those phenomenological predictions, as well as we go into the field and look for Earth observations that are either consistent with the theory, and if they're not, we use those observations to modify and improve the theory for all amorphous solids. Since I'm an Earth scientist, one of the things that we really want to answer is the soft Earth just complicated, wherein you need like complex knowledge and complicated models to understand what's going on? Or is it just complex and amenable to novel theoretical insights? We want to know what's the limit of predictions or predictability of these flow behaviors. Can we work in sort of a state phase space where if you know the state variables, do they help you predict what's going to happen? How can looking at Earth materials inspire new areas in physics? And can we actually help with forecasting some of these things? Some of the experimental stuff that we do is we go to synchrotrons and we shoot X-rays at sands, and we're able to see them in 3 dimensions and calculate just about every possible physical properties. And the group here is leading this charge in the entire world and developing the techniques as we move along. We also do a lot of lab experiments where we're doing rheology. We take lasers, we use them to track particles, motion, we use them to calculate strain, force networks, stress strain, and that is the key to relating the stresses in the Earth to the flow behaviors of granular materials. We also go into the field and we collect samples. We do seismic refraction surveys, seismic reflection surveys, look at ambient noise, trenching, and take sediment cores. What I'm going to do is talk about some of the recent things that we've either published or are working on. So one of the things that we've been working on is looking at the unifying theory of memory creation and erasure, and how that influences when something will be solid and when something will flow. And we've been doing this in fault zone and showing that these unifying theory actually influence what happens in fault systems over time, and that there's a cycle of this creating the memory, erasing it, and this influences the friction in the fault system over time. Another thing that we've been working on is constraining the distribution of friction inside the grains that are flowing and on the walls. So you imagine you have a fault zone and it's being sheared. How is the friction distributed inside the grain and at the fault walls? And we're using rheology and boundary stress microscopy experiments to do this. We're also working on new ways to forecast failure that goes beyond the typical geophysical ways, with this concept called density of excited vibrational modes. And what we do there is we take the geophysical time series, but we extract from it the patterns of vibrations as a function of its frequency and wave number over time. And what you find is that as you approach failure, the number of low frequency vibrational modes actually increase as a potential precursor towards failure. With a new postdoc that just arrived here, we're working on really looking at how we can characterize various types of flows using complex systems theory, free energy landscapes, looking at how the disorder or organization of the material actually influences the flow behavior. And this is complexity theory, and using it for understanding flow is actually an emergent thing, as well as another unifying theory that we're working on, because it's been shown to explain social behaviors and a lot of other Earth systems. I have 2 undergrads in the lab, and they also do research. And so you, if you come here, you can get to interact with undergrads. And they're working on trying to understand how energy during depositions influence the organization of the grains and the strain that results within the grains. And if you think of all of our Earth systems near the surface, what's the difference between them is how much energy is input into those systems at the moment of deposition and then what happens afterwards. So that's some sort of a feel for stuff in Earth. And I'll probably end by saying we're not limited to Earth because there's a bunch of grains in other planets. We've been working to understand the hydrogeological evolution of Mars. 3.8 billion years ago, Mars had water, it lost its atmosphere. And then we've been working to understand where water actually is. And our most recent study that we're about to submit is actually finding that there seems to be water at 8 to 20 kilometers filling the pores beneath InSight on Mars. And that's it.
Thank you for sharing. Last but not least, Elise, would you like to present theoretical and computational geophysics?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, last but not least, it's my pleasure to introduce the theoretical and computational geophysics group at IGPP, and I'm probably the only one that doesn't have a view from the balcony on the title slide, but it's a view on a computational model of the Ridgecrest earthquakes. And I try to be quick, as quick as maybe these seismic waves that you see emanating here in this model. So how do we learn about the Earth? You've heard a lot about all of these different ways how you could be a geophysicist and how you can be trained if you're joining the program at IGPP to be one of the world leading geophysicists. It is really unique about IGPP that we have a very strong instrumentation program, so that doesn't only include all of these interesting measurement campaigns that you heard about, but also designing new instruments and coming up with new ways how to measure and observe natural phenomena. We're also very strong in analytical model development in the forward and in the inverse sense, and in computing, including high performance computing. So for example, at UCSD, there's a supercomputer that is run by the San Diego Supercomputing Center that's called Expanse. We're also pretty good in using low performance computing, such as laptops. And I don't know if that was mentioned before, but every grad student will receive a laptop, which is maybe important to know. What do we model? There's really a huge range of models that are being integrated in research that you've seen already throughout the last slides. This is just the incomplete overview. And we're ranging from flow of liquid metals at Earth's core and their interactions with the magnetic field, to clouds and atmospheric simulations, to electromagnetism, to the dynamics of the lithosphere, for example, continental rifting, to earthquakes and the seismic cycle and ground motions. If you look into the profiles of all of the faculty that's interested in analytical and computational model development, you will see that being able to design and handle these tools will enable you to do much more than geophysics. So we're really diving into some of the state-of-the-art tools and skill sets that will be beneficial when you're leaving IGPP with your PhD, that really go also far beyond the academic world. So we have here PDEs, of course. We saw Dave Sandwell fixing a leaky PDE problem on Alice's slide with a Fourier transform. But we also have machine learning, numerical methods, high performance computing, and data analysis skills here. So it's highly interdisciplinary, reaching to applied math and computer science. I will paste this link later that Matti likes to share about what an MCMC, so a clever way how to solve an inverse, or how to solve an uncertainty problem can do to you. You can watch that later after I'm finished. And this is an incomplete overview over the faculty that is using analytical and computational models. And I think you see that there's some kind of repetition here. We're all pretty interdisciplinary in our science. As I said, and that's maybe important to know, there's many different ways how you could use these tools. You could aim to solve large problems, so forward problems. You can use computations to do that. You can also try to connect models better with data. And we're also interested in solving inverse problems. And there's a long history at IGPP to do this in novel ways. We are on the path to exascale supercomputing, and that is a really exciting development and can include fieldwork to large supercomputers, as it's shown here. And there's lots of opportunity to be involved into running geoscience applications on these largest supercomputers that are just coming up right now. But we're also really interested in utilizing modern tech in terms of machine learning or AI, cloud computing, surrogate models. And I want to highlight that the faculty here is all really invested in community software. So the tools you've been learning is open. You can take it with you when you're leaving with your PhD. And that is, I think, an important aspect that you will be exposed to really modern practices and best practices and how to deal with specifically computational software. And slide here has an example of a recent paper published by a student here that is using the output of simulations of earthquake shaking to set up a reduced order model, so something that's a statistical model, and evaluate shake maps, for example, just in milliseconds. And we're also really interested in integrating a lot of interdisciplinary observations. And here's another example. It's already my last slide. I said I'm quick into these models. So here's an example where we've been using earthquake banks, so loud noises produced by earthquakes, in this case, really small events that have been induced by human activity for greener energy. And these earthquakes, they were not so much disturbing because of their shaking, but because of the loud noises they made. And we've been setting up interdisciplinary models, multiphysics models, and trying to better understand what kind of noise these small earthquakes can produce. And with this, I'm finished, and I will share the link in the chat, and please reach out with any questions.
Thank you, Elise. That concludes our info session. I do sincerely apologize that we ran 28 minutes over time, but I do appreciate everybody taking that time to learn more about geophysics from all of us. I hope people here got something out of the info session. We are going to put the link to the recording. We'll email this to you. It'll be available. You can watch it again. We're also going to provide all the presentations that you saw and share that with you as well. And so, all that contact information and group specific info will be accessible to you. Feel free to reach out to either GP admissions at ucsd.edu or directly to PIs, mentors, potential mentors. Apologies again, and I hope everyone enjoyed the session, and I wish you all a good day. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for attending. And thanks to all the speakers, of course, for presenting their research.
Thanks. See ya.
Thanks, Gilbert.